The arena was alive with noise, the sound of alien cheers shaking the very walls. Creatures of all shapes and sizes filled the stands, their strange faces twisted in excitement. They had come to see blood, and they were getting their wish. In the center of the arena stood a humana lone figure, broken and bloodied. His face was bruised, one eye nearly swollen shut. Blood ran from a deep cut on his forehead, mixing with the dirt under his feet. His breath was heavy, each inhale. A fight for life. Yet he stood. The crowd laughed. They shouted insults in 100 different languages, throwing small objects at him. Most didn't believe he could still be alive, let alone standing. His opponent was still circling him. Massive alien warrior with 4 arms, each muscle bulging with strength. The alien skin was dark and rough like stone, eyes glowing red with delight. This was no fight. It was a show, and the alien was the star. From one of the royal booths above, a tall alien noble waved his hand. Beside him, locked inside a gilded cage, sat a beautiful alien girl. Her skin was a smooth blue, her eyes like shining sapphires. She was dressed in fine silks, yet her expression was hollow, trapped and owned. She watched the human below, her gaze fixed not with pity, but with curiosity. The noble leaned to his companion and sneered. "I bet my slave girl, the human, won't last another minute." The other aliens laughed, agreeing with the wager. The girl heard every word, her eyes narrowing. She knew what would happen if the human lost. She would remain a prize, a pretty toy to be owned by the next cruel master. But something deep inside her whispered that this human was different. The human wiped blood from his eyes and stared at his opponent. He was tired, yes, but his spirit had not cracked. Somewhere inside him, a flame still burned. He remembered the faces of those who had brought him here, the ones who called him weak, soft, breakable. He clenched his fists tighter, despite the pain screaming in his body. The alien champion roared and charged. The ground shook with each heavy step. The human dodged clumsily, his body slow from injury. A strike grazed his side, opening a fresh wound, but he didn't fall. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction. From her cage, the slave girl watched closer, her hands gripping the golden bars. She noticed something the others did not. Every time the human was hit, he got back up faster. Every time he was knocked down, he rose, angrier, stronger. It wasn't normal. His eyes, they didn't look defeated. The alien champion laughed, his voice deep and cruel. "Stay down, human. You'll die faster." But the human spat blood and smiled. "You talk too much." The crowd howled with laughter. The alien noble above slammed his fist on the armrest, amused by the human's defiance. "Entertaining. But still dead soon," he said. Grinning, the slave girl whispered something under her breath. A word, a name. She didn't know why, but the word came to her when she looked at the human. As if her soul remembered something her mind had forgotten. The human's eyes snapped to her for a brief moment, as if hearing her silent whisper. He didn't know why, but the sight of her gave him strength. He remembered why he was fighting, not just to live, but to win. The alien champion lunged again, swinging his heavy fists. The human ducked, rolled, grabbed a sharp bone fragment from the ground. He stabbed upwards, slicing the alien's arm. The crowd gasped. The alien howled in pain, more shocked than hurt. How could a wounded, weak human land a blow? But the human didn't stop. He kept moving, every breath a defiance of death itself. His vision blurred, but he stayed focused. Above, the noble's face changed. He wasn't laughing anymore. "What is this?" he muttered. The slave girl smiled faintly. She could feel it, the shift in the air. This human wasn't just fighting with his body. He was fighting with something deeper, older. The champion growled, now furious. He charged blindly, wanting to crush the human under sheer strength. But that was his mistake. The human sidestepped, used the alien's momentum, and drove the bone shard deep into the alien's leg. The champion stumbled, roaring in frustration. The crowd went silent for a moment. It was the first time the human looked like he might survive. The slave girl pressed her forehead to the bars, her voice soft. "Fight, human. Win, and free us." Both, the human didn't hear her words, but he felt them. Deep inside, something stirred, something that made his blood feel hot, his body lighter. He didn't know what it was yet, but soon. The whole arena would, and for the first time since the fight began. The human smiled, because he knew he was not done yet. From high above the arena pit, locked behind golden bars, the alien slave girl watched the human with unblinking eyes. The nobles around her roared with laughter and jeers, shouting over each other, placing bets on how soon the human's bones would break. But she was silent. She was always silent. Yet this time, her heart refused to stay still. She gripped the cold metal of her cage, her slender fingers tightening each time the human staggered or fell. His blood painted the arena floor, but still he stood. No human was supposed to survive this long. She had seen this same scene play out dozens of times: aliens crushed, humans ripped apart, all for sport. But this one was different. He wasn't fighting like the others. He wasn't giving up. The noble who owned her, a sneering, sharp-toothed brute named Harkle, leaned back in his seat. "Pathetic," he muttered, "yet stubborn. Perhaps the human doesn't understand what death is." He laughed, but the girl didn't. She was staring so hard, she forgot to breathe. There was a feeling growing inside her, a strange ache she couldn't explain. It wasn't pity. No, pity was useless in this pit. It was something older, deeper. A pull, like a string connecting her chest to his broken form. She didn't know why, but she wanted him to survive. She needed him to survive. Then something strange happened. The human, barely able to stay upright, lifted his head. His one good eye turned, searching, and landed on her. Directly on her. Their eyes met in that fleeting connection. Something passed between them. A message without words. A spark that made her heart pound. She parted her lips, and though no one could hear her over the noise, she whispered anyway. "Don't fall, please, ... don't fall." She didn't know if he heard her. It didn't matter. She had to say it. For the first time in years, she wished for something with all her soul. The human, as if sensing her plea, straightened his back just a little more. His knees were shaking, his body broken, but he smiled faintly. Not for the crowd, not for himself, for her. Harkle noticed the glance. He sneered and grabbed her chin roughly, turning her face away. "You don't look at trash, girl. That thing will be dead soon." She shoved his hand off, earning a glare and a raised fist. But Harkle paused, his pride unwilling to beat her in front of the other nobles. Instead, he laughed and turned his attention back to the fight. Yet the girl's eyes returned to the human. Her mind raced. She remembered something from the old stories, the ones her mother used to whisper before her people were enslaved. Tales of warriors, of ancient power hidden in the blood of the unlikely. She shook her head. No, it couldn't be. Could it? She tried again. She focused all her thoughts on him, as if her will could somehow reach across the distance. "Ch," she whispered. Another word, one so ancient it tasted like dust in her mouth. "Velkin," she breathed. The human froze. His head tilted as if he'd heard something not spoken aloud. His eyes burned brighter. His fingers clenched tighter below. His alien opponent didn't notice. The champion was too proud, too angry that the human wasn't dead yet. He was already planning his next brutal strike. But up in the cage, The girl's heart was racing. She remembered now Velkan wasn't just a word, it was a name from the old world. A word of power. She didn't understand how, but she knew then this human carried more than human blood. There was something ancient within him, something that answered when the word was spoken. She leaned closer to the bars. "Fight, human," she whispered. "Fight and free me, ... free yourself." And down below, the human grinned through his pain, eyes burning like they never had before. The fight wasn't over. No, not yet. And maybe, just maybe, she had just awakened a part of him that even he didn't know was sleeping. The human's knees threatened to collapse, but something unseen refused to let him fall. His body was wrecked, bruised, bleeding, barely able to move. Yet, as the cold dirt pressed against his boots, he stood, slowly, deliberately. The crowd, once deafening, grew quiet in surprise. The champion alien stood a few meters away, staring with 4 red eyes in disbelief. No opponent had ever stood back up after taking such punishment from him. This was supposed to be a spectacle, an easy show of strength, but this human was ruining it. The human spat blood to the side and chuckled dryly. "Still ugly," he muttered, though his cracked lips barely moved. From the royal booth, the slave girl watched, her heart pounding against her ribs. She had whispered a word Velkan, and something had changed. She wasn't sure if it was magic or fate or something else, but she felt the shift. The human's eyes were brighter now, alive with some fire that wasn't there before. And then, as he flexed his shaking fingers, something stranger happened. His veins glowed. A faint blue light pulsed beneath his skin, subtle but unmistakable. The glow was the same color as her own skin, the same glow her people once carried when they ruled, before their kingdom was broken, before they became slaves. The crowd started to murmur. They saw it too. "What trick is this?" one noble barked. "Is he using a hidden weapon?" Another hissed. But the human had no weapon. Just his bare hands and the jagged piece of bone he'd snatched earlier. The champion alien roared, swinging. A fist the size of a human head. The blow should have crushed the human's skull like a melon. But this time, the human moved faster, sharper. As if the air around him whispered when to dodge, he ducked under the swing, rolled and slashed with the bone shard, cutting across the alien's thigh. Not deep, but enough to draw blood. The alien howled, more in rage than pain. "You bleed me, little worm," he bellowed. The human smiled weakly. "Bleeding's fair play." From her cage, the girl's eyes widened. She saw it, the way he moved wasn't human anymore. The glow in his veins wasn't a trick, it was real. The human steadied himself. His mind was clearer now, even if his body screamed. He didn't understand what was happening inside him, but he felt ... alive. The pain was still there, but it didn't control him. The whispers inside his head, silent for so long, had awakened. "Remember who you are," a voice, not his own, echoed. Faintly in his mind, the champion attacked again, but the human sidestepped, barely dodging. He was slower than he wanted to be, but faster than before. He stabbed again once, twice, targeting joints, weak spots, anything he could find. The crowd was in chaos now. Nobles shouted, some angry, some excited. "What is this?" Harkle growled, gripping his seat. The slave girl couldn't tear her gaze away. Her heart whispered to her that this human was her only chance, her only hope. She had to help him, but how? She was just a slave in a gilded cage. She closed her eyes, focusing every thought, every memory of her people's power, and whispered again, "Velkan." Awakened fully, the human's eyes burned brighter. He didn't hear her voice, not in sound, but in his soul. He moved again, landing another strike. The champion stumbled. The ground trembled not from the giant's weight, but from something else. The energy within the human was rising, growing, waiting to be unleashed. The crowd didn't understand, but they knew something was wrong. This was no longer a human fighting with sheer will. This was something ... older, stronger, and it was just getting started. For a breathless moment, the arena held its silence. Even the alien champion, towering and brutal, stopped moving. His four eyes locked onto the human, narrowing at the soft blue glow now pulsing through the human's veins. It was faint, barely noticeable under his bruised and torn skin. But the glow was real. It matched the same luminous hue as the alien slave girl watching from her cage. She saw it, her heart thundering as if it recognized the light before her mind could catch up. This wasn't an accident. This was a calling. The human, panting but steady, clenched his fists, and with each heartbeat, the glow brightened, pulsing like a rhythm waking inside him. His bones felt less heavy, his muscles stronger. It was as if something ancient had been sleeping deep in his blood, waiting for a word, a whisper. Or maybe just the right moment to break free. Up in the noble booth, Harkle stood abruptly, pointing a trembling claw at the arena. Stop the fight. He carries forbidden power. He roared, but it was too late. The champion alien charged, roaring in fury, determined to crush the human before any more tricks appeared. His steps shook the arena floor, his fists ready to smash skull and bone into dust. The human didn't retreat this time. He stepped forward, eyes sharp, the glow in his veins now racing like liquid light. He felt the strength in his body more than his own. Something or someone was moving with him. Inside him, the champion threw a massive fist toward the human's head, but the world seemed slower now. The human saw the strike coming, the muscles moving, the air shifting, and he moved. He ducked under the blow, his body faster than it had ever been, and slammed his palm into the alien's gut. It wasn't just a punch, it was a shockwave. The alien champion staggered back, eyes wide in shock. Where the human's hand landed, a burning mark glowed on his skin. Energy crackled, seeping from the human's touch. The crowd gasped, some rising to their feet in disbelief. In the slave girl's cage, her eyes welled with tears, not from sadness, but from awe. She whispered, "It's true. The blood of the first ones lives in him." The human didn't know these words, but he felt them in his bones. He moved again, faster than before, slamming another strike into the champion's side. Sparks of blue light danced from his fingers. Each hit left a glow behind. As if marking the giant for destruction, the champion bellowed in confusion and rage, swinging wildly, but he was too slow. The human was a blur of light and pain, striking, dodging, striking again. Harkle screamed from the booth, "Kill him now. Kill him before it's too late." But the human was no longer just a man. The glow in his veins connected with something deeper, something ancient that lived in his very bloodline. A gift, a curse, a weapon, the human didn't know which. He only knew that it made him stronger. And with each strike, the champion weakened, his roars turning into desperate growls. The crowd, once cheering for the champion, now watched in fearful silence. This was no longer the same wounded human they had mocked. This was something else. The slave girl pressed her forehead to the bars, whispering, "VEL, single quotes, KAAN, ... awaken." At that name, the glow in the human's veins flared, his eyes burning like twin stars. With a final leap, he slammed both fists into the champion's chest. The alien giant flew backward, crashing into the arena walls, cracking stone and steel that the champion didn't rise. The arena fell deathly silent. The human stood. In the center, body glowing faintly, blood still dripping, but power alive in his bones. His breathing was heavy, but his stance unbroken, and his eyes, those burning eyes, turned to the noble booth, straight at Harkle. The message was clear. She's mine now. The slave girl gripped the bars, tears falling freely. She didn't know why, whether it was relief, hope, or the truth of some forgotten destiny, but she whispered, barely audible. The crowd stared in breathless silence. The mighty champion, the beast of countless victories, lay crumpled against the stone wall of the arena, his enormous body twitching but unable to rise. Dust still floated in the air from the impact, but no one cheered. They couldn't. No one knew what they had just witnessed. All eyes turned to the human. He stood in the middle of the blood-soaked pit, body trembling, veins glowing faintly with that strange blue light. His chest rose and fell with each heavy breath, but there was power in his posture. Shoulders squared, head high. The human was not supposed to be alive, let alone victorious. In the noble booth, Harkle's eyes burned with rage and panic. He hadn't just wagered money on this fight, he had wagered his most prized possession, the alien slave girl, and, by the rules of the arena, everything bet was binding. No, Harkle growled, slamming his fist on the armrest. This is a trick. This is impossible. The human cheated. But even his fellow nobles looked uncertain now. They had seen the fight. They had seen the human rise when no one should have. He didn't cheat, he awakened. The announcer, a tall, insectoid alien, trembled as he stepped forward. His voice was shaky, but he knew the protocol. By the laws of combat, victory belongs to the human, he declared, his voice echoing through the stunned arena. All wagers are his. The words hung heavy in the air. Slowly, the human raised his hand, not in triumph, but in demand. His finger pointed straight to the slave girl's cage. His meaning was clear. She was his prize. The girl froze, her hands still gripping the bars. She couldn't breathe. No one had ever fought for her before, not like this. She had been a decoration, a thing passed from one master to another. But now, a wounded, bleeding human had shattered an unstoppable warrior, and pointed to her as his claim. Harkle's face twisted with fury. No, she is mine, he barked. She is royalty, a rare bloodline. He doesn't even know what he holds, but the laws of the arena were sacred. Even Harkle, for all his wealth and power, could not defy them openly. The guards looked at each other, then at Harkle. Waiting for his command, unchain her, the announcer finally ordered. 2 guards approached the girl's cage. She recoiled. At first, years of slavery had trained her to expect pain. Up. But they didn't strike her. Instead, they opened the cage, unfastened her shackles, and gestured for her to step forward. Her legs trembled. She had dreamed of freedom, but she never imagined it would come from a human's hand. She stepped down carefully, her silken garments flowing, her bright blue skin catching the arena lights. She walked, slow but steady, crossing the dirt and blood until she stood before him. The human's eyes softened when he saw her up close. She was delicate, but there was strength in her gaze. She was more than a slave. She was something ancient, something important. She stared into his eyes and whispered, "You heard my call, didn't you?" The human didn't fully understand her words, but he felt them. That whisper, that strange name Velcone had done something to him, unlocked something inside he didn't know existed. "What's your name?" he asked her quietly. She looked away, unsure. It had been so long since anyone asked her that. Finally, she whispered, "Sira." "Sira," he repeated, nodding slowly. "I'm taking you out of here." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She had been won, claimed like a prize, but this felt different. This wasn't ownership. Was liberation. Above them, Harkle roared in frustration, his pride shattered, his slave taken by a human. But he could do nothing, not here, not now. The human extended his hand to her. She hesitated, but then, with a small, trembling smile, she placed her hand in his. The crowd watched, silent and stunned, as the bloodied human and the freed alien. Girls stood together, an impossible pair, born from battle, bound by fate. But deep inside, both of them knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Because the name she had called him, the ancient name, Velkon, meant more than either of them yet understood. The guards parted as the girls stepped forward, her bare feet brushing the dust and blood of the arena floor. The arena's eyes were on her, on the human, on the unspoken connection between them. She could barely feel her steps. Was this really happening? She was free, but more than that, she was chosen. The human stood waiting, his breath shallow but steady, his body still radiating a soft blue glow beneath his torn, blood-streaked skin. He was broken, yet he stood like a victor. When she stopped in front of him, he looked at her, not like a prize, not like property, but like someone who mattered. "What now?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. The human tilted his head, a tired smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You're coming with me." That was the deal. She should have felt uneasy, another chain around her neck, but instead, her heart stirred with something else. Hope. Above them, Harkle's voice shattered the moment. "This isn't over, human," he bellowed, his claws clenched tight. "You've taken my property, but you don't know what she is. That girl carries more than royal blood. She carries a curse. She will doom you." The human looked up, eyes cold. "I'll take my chances," he said. The girl flinched at Harkle's words. A curse. She had always felt different, heavier, like something inside her was locked away. But the human didn't hesitate. He didn't care about bloodlines or curses. The announcer cleared his throat nervously. "By the law of the arena, the girl belongs to the victor. The human claims her." The crowd erupted into chaotic noise. Some cheered, others protested, and some whispered in fear. The stories of the old blood, the cursed blood, had been told for generations. But no one dared defy the arena's law. Without waiting for ceremony, the human turned and began walking, his steps slow but firm. The girl hesitated, then followed him, her silks brushing the dirt. When she reached his side, he staggered slightly, his wounds catching up to him. Without a word, she slipped under his arm, helping him stand. She was delicate, but she was stronger than she looked. The human glanced at her, surprised. "You don't have to help," he muttered. She smiled gently. "I know, but I want to." Together, they made their way toward the exit of the arena, leaving the fallen champion and furious nobles behind. The crowd watched them go, already spinning tales of the human with glowing veins and the alien slave, who walked freely by his side as they crossed the threshold into the dark corridors beyond the arena. The girl whispered, "You don't even know who I am." The human smiled weakly. "Then tell me." She hesitated, then said, "I am Sira of the lost bloodline. My ancestors once ruled the stars, before they were hunted, cursed, and sold as slaves." The human nodded. "Good. Then we start with truth, and after that, we'll figure out what that curse really is." For the first time in her life, Sira laughed. Not because the curse was lifted, or because she was free, but because she finally had someone who didn't care what the galaxy called her. He only cared that she was by his side. Behind them, the arena roared with rumors and fear. But ahead was freedom. And for both the human and the alien girl, that was worth everything. Ask ChatGPT. The corridors beyond the arena were dark, damp, and filled with echoes of ancient battles, but to the human and the alien girl, every step forward felt like leaving a graveyard behind. He limped, his wounds aching with every movement, but he kept going. The girl Sarah supported him with surprising strength for someone so delicate in appearance. Neither of them spoke at first. The weight of what had just happened clung to the air between them. Finally, the human broke the silence. His voice, low but curious. "What was that word you said?" "Before I stood up again." Sira glanced at him, her sapphire eyes reflecting the dim light. "Vilkan." She whispered, as if the name itself carried power. "What does it mean?" She smiled faintly. "It's not just a word. It's a name. A title from my people's oldest legends. The one who carries the old power, the power of the Starblood." "Starblood," she nodded. "It runs through the veins of those chosen by fate. It was believed to be lost forever. But when I saw you glowing, I knew the blood of the ancients lives in you." The human chuckled, despite the pain. "Lucky me." Sira smiled wider, sensing his sarcasm, but also his acceptance. He wasn't like the others. He didn't panic or reject the strange truth of what he was becoming. He embraced it. They reached the open streets beyond the arena walls, where the sun was setting over the alien city's spires. The light painted everything in deep reds and golds, casting long shadows behind them. "Where will we go?" Sira asked, her voice cautious. The human looked at the horizon, his eyes thoughtful. "Somewhere they can't put us in cages," he said simply. "But first, I need to know what this power is. I need to know why it woke up inside me." Sira stopped, her eyes full of memories both painful and proud. "My people knew the stories, but no one remembers the truth. If you really are Velkan, then the galaxy will come for you. They'll fear you, hunt you, or try to use you. Let them come," the human muttered. "I fought worse, and I'm not alone now." His gaze fell on her. "You're free, Sira. You don't have to stay with me." She shook her head. "Slowly, I was born a slave. But with you, I feel like more. I want to see what this power makes of you. I want to see who we can become together." They stood for a moment, two figures alone in a sprawling alien world, one carrying ancient power, the other the last of a lost royal line. The human smiled, the first true smile since he'd bled in the arena. "Then let's start over. I'm Kane." Sira smiled back. "I'm Sira." "Good," Kane said. "Now let's go change the galaxy." Together they walked into the dusk, not as slave and savior, not as human and alien, but as something new. A bond forged by blood, by destiny, and by the fight for freedom. And in the distance, hidden eyes watched them go, whispering the name that now echoed across the stars.